What up, everybody? It's your boy James Wudi. It is time for another Wudi 3. And we actually are going to talk about this later in the Wudi 3. But, for everybody with their frown, we are officially eliminated from playoff contention. Really, I don't, I don't know what to say because I don't know how you could have sat there at 0-7 and really think this team was going to win out, even after those two wins, right? 2-7. Did you really think the team was going to win out? I think the thought that time was, oh, don't let us beat the Patriots. Don't let us beat the Patriots. And they didn't. They didn't let us beat the Patriots. And that, like, for even the most hopeful, romantic, that should have been the nail in the coffin, really, that, this team is not making the playoffs. Of course, for the average rational fan, I hope you came to that conclusion really like at 0-5. But if you are, again, the most hopeless of romantics, you really should have came to that conclusion after the Patriots game where the Jets fell to 2-8. But now, after officially being eliminated, I don't think much has changed. I still would like to see wins. I would still like to see building blocks for next year. Of course, the tank, was the tank faction is louder. They've gained a lot more members. But I guess that's where I'm so confused is, did that many people really think like, oh, we are going to make the playoffs until last week? Because that is just crazy to me. But anyway, we are at week 15 going on the road to the Jaguars, who are a decent team this year. It's pretty funny because the Jags, so many number one overall picks the last decade, which goes to tell you, how bad their team has been, but they still, have a playoff win in that span, and it looks like they're headed to the playoffs now. Now they also have a new coach in Liam Cohen, who looks like the right coach. The Jets have a new coach, and I'm not trying to say anything bad about AG, but he is not having the season that Liam Cohen is having. That we should all be able to agree on. So pretty interesting. I feel like a lot of times the Jets and the Jags they get placed together because we've been so bad for a little bit of time. But they've had spurts. They've had spurts of, I believe they even won the division that year that they had the playoff win against the Chargers. I mean, they've been solid, but just a lot of inconsistency that it looks like has been cleared up by their coach. But we'll see. So just another organization that has leapfrogged us. Leapfrogged us, just like the Patriots, which that one – I can't even speak on it because it makes me so upset. So let's change the subject before I start crying on this live video right here and talk about the Wudi 3. Come on now, 3 things worth looking at in this Jets-Jaguars game. We're going to start with the full-time cook. We talking about Brady Cook. And this is a very interesting situation because he obviously was upgraded last week to QB2. They said Fields had an injury. Who knew? I don't know. They said bruised knee. Maybe it was a bruised ego. We'll I guess find out later or more about that later. But either way, he was QB2. Always a chance that QB2 plays whenever Tyrod Taylor is playing a game, unfortunately. And boom, there he was playing the game. Wasn't great. Kind of terrible. But the quick thing to point out is, he's never had first team reps all season. He's been in practice squad, barely on the team, just practicing with guys in similar situations. And that is exactly what the world pointed out when Shedeur Sanders was thrown into the game against the Ravens. And his statistics didn't look that great. Well, that very next season, oh my gosh, that very next game, sorry, Shador looked pretty competent. All right, 200 yards, a touchdown, got the win. I know it's against the Raiders, so they kind of made easy pickings this season, but still a competent game, and you can see the chemistry, the improvement of chemistry, or the difference of chemistry between that first week where he's like, oh, I don't even. All right, let's see, and then no, you see how that's worked, and then of course, they've played more games than that, and now he looks like he has a real connection with Jerry Jeudy, and that's all well and good for the Browns franchise. So if you go now back to Brady Cook, right? We just had the thrown into the fire, no first team reps. Now this is he all week. He's known he is the guy. He has been throwing balls in practice to A.D. Mitchell, to John Mechie, to maybe Mason Taylor before he got hurt, but probably Jeremy Ruckert, Breece Hall as an outlet. So now that he has those reps, are we going to see the same improvement of chemistry that we saw with Shador? Are we going to see that with Brady? I'm looking a great percentage or a great statistic to look at to verify that is the completion percentage, because that's going to tell us, okay, more completions. He's, on the same page with these guys. Interceptions, people do make mistakes. I'm expecting a mistake. We're going to talk about that in a little bit in terms of, turnovers and stuff like that. But, are we going to see a touchdown? There are a lot of variables that go into each of the different statistics, but percentage, that's a pretty clear indicator. Okay. If I throw the ball, I have good enough chemistry with this receiver that they're going to catch it. So that is a statistic worth looking at. And we're going to see how Brady does this week in his NFL start. First ever NFL start for Brady Cook. Good luck to him, because as I said earlier, I still want the Jets to perform. I did have to bench. A.D. Mitchell was on my fantasy team. I started him last week. It was very depressing starting him, so I had to bench him this week, especially with Brady Cook. I don't know what's going on there. So, better safe than sorry, but I want him. Obviously I'm rooting for Brady. I'm rooting for everybody. And again, improvement in chemistry, regardless of all the other stats. If we can see an improvement in chemistry, that would be a great thing for Brady and a great thing for our guy, Tanner Engstrand, who has also had all week to prep a game plan specifically for this quarterback. Number 2, welcome to the jungle. They got fun and games, okay? They have been swarming these opposing defense. I had no idea. You talk about the top defenses in the league. Denver always comes up. The Texans have been playing out of their mind. I haven't really been hearing too much Jacksonville. I'm not gonna lie, I've not heard Jacksonville. The Browns, right, have had a good defense. The Falcons, but the Jaguars, I've heard nothing about. Haven't seen them in fantasy, but it turns out maybe we should be hearing about them, because they have the best run defense in the NFL by far. Only 3 teams allow less than 90 rushing yards per game. Only 3 teams. But if you just go 1 yard less and go to 89, then there's only one team, and that one team is the Jacksonville Jaguars. They allow 82.9 rushing yards per game. That is a huge margin away from number 2, and they are second in the NFL in takeaways. We're talking about fumbles recovered and interceptions, in which they are also second in the league. That's kind of scary, when you're talking about Brady Cook, who just threw 2, both of them pretty bad throws. And the Jags, they face pretty successful teams. The Daniel Jones has been fairly successful. Patrick Mahomes, they've faced, a few successful QBs, but they out here getting turnovers. So with Brady Cook, this is a huge chance for him and Tanner not only to dial up plays, but to execute on the plays and see what they can do. For Brees Hall, I mean, he's 123 yards away from that elusive 1,000. I thought we would be way closer. I mean, he was on pace for, I want to say, 1,233 or 1,254 yards. He was on pace for not too long ago. I want to say after the Browns game. So since then, it's been rough pickings. It's been rough pickings for my guy Brees. Matter of fact, I can open up another tab real quick and see his numbers, because I don't think, after having a few games of 100 yards, it's been a while since he's had um, over like 70 in the last one, two, three, four. Yeah, he hasn't had over 70 in the last four. And that Browns game was 5 games ago, where he had 83, which followed up the 133. So that was when he was on pace for the 1254. But now, no games over 70 yards since then. He's kind of been, I don't want to say struggling, but I guess I can say struggling, because if you look at the yards per carry for those games, I mean, we talk 4.1 is solid, right? That's average. And then 2.8, disgusting. 3.6, not great. 3.1, disgusting. So, kind of been struggling since. So, is this a game that he picks it up? Probably not, because he's facing the best run defense in the NFL right now. So, that puts even more pressure on Brady, more pressure on the entire passing offense to do some work. But of course, the last time that they went against a supreme rushing defense, that was the New England Patriots. They have been overpassed by the Jaguars. They're still number 2, but at the time that they faced the Patriots, they were number 1. That was the game that Brees had the 4.1 yards per carry. The last time he's had 4 yards per carry or more. So maybe that's what makes Brees elevate to the occasion, right? Is going against the big dogs, right? Makes him raise his game, and maybe we will see 4 yards per carry and a solid outing from him. Number 3, life after death. Shout out to the Diddy documentary on Netflix. I pretty much was peer pressured into watching it, and obviously it covered Big E and one of his biggest albums, Life After Death. So I thought I'd throw that little nugget in there. And for the Jets, and this is actually really coming from the sentiment of my guy, Boy Green, Mr. Paul Esden Jr., because on Boy Green Meets Wudi, he was somebody who was like went out, and then now that they're eliminated, was really, really down. Like, I was surprised to see how down he was. He feels like there's nothing to play for. Oh, the team is dead. And I'm not sure if so don't quote me on this part, but I'm not sure if he is trying to tank for Fernando or whatever, but he was just like, there's nothing to play for. They're not going to win any games against prospective playoff teams. And I'm just like, damn. Well, that would be really, for lack of a better word, really shitty, right? Like, we've seen that with the Saleh regime. They lose out to finish the season, and that's just not how you build what we're trying to build. There have been Jets teams in the past that have spoiled things for other teams. Despite being far out of the playoffs, they can spoil things for other teams. There have been teams that did that to the Jets. The Bills were nowhere near the playoffs in 2015 when they just destroy Ryan Fitztragic and kicked us out of the playoffs. So that's something I would love to be the spoiler, especially knowing that we have the Patriots and the Bills later in the season. I would love to beat them both. So how does Aaron Glenn feel about this? Are they looking at Fernando? I know there's a couple guys who've been hitting me up, Instagram, phone, everything, acting like Fernando is you know, '05 Peyton Manning. Like they going hard with the love for Fernando. There's a lot of hype. I feel like, especially New York, they feel like he's a perfect match. And I can talk about Fernando on a different video. As a matter of fact, let me know in the comments of this video. Leave a comment on this video if you want me to leave, my Fernando thoughts or general QB thoughts in a separate video. I can definitely do that. But I personally am trying to win out. That would be great for this team. A guy like Brees who doesn't know, what his future holds. Like, you went out, you feature him. Okay, let's go. Let's run it back. Let's run it back with this regime. There's a few guys, a lot of these guys that still have stuff to prove. A.D. Mitchell, he probably doesn't want to see a receiver replace him in the depth chart. Okay, well, prove it. John Mechie, same. They're in the exact same boat. Jawan Briggs doesn't want to get pushed down the depth chart. There's a lot of young, talented players who want to prove that they can take the next step. They don't need, an additional person or additional player. No, they can be that guy. So there's still a lot for these players to play for. And I want to know, and I guess we will know rather quickly, does AG feel the same way? Are these guys still playing for something, or is it just tank time, for Fernando, and that's the end of the season? So the way last week went, I know a lot of people are like, "Oh, didn't you see last week, Wudi?" Like, that's already clear. We already know divisional games can get funky. They got punched in the mouth. They got more than punch. They got punch, kick, knee, elbow in the mouth. Didn't ever, remotely come close. But again, Brady could. That was his first NFL action. What were we expect? We were expecting a shootout. That wouldn't make any sense. So, with this game, Brady's prepared, more prepared. Everybody's prepared. Even without, Mason Taylor out there, Rucker has been catching passes just as fine. Brees, I need him more involved in the passing offense. I don't know what's happening because that could even get his run game going. I feel like once he just gets one big run, he's good to go. So even if that's a screen, feed this man the beast, God. And then, let's see what happens going against this defense. And Aaron Glenn, show me that there is life after the death of being eliminated in the playoffs. Show me that you guys are still trying to fight, still trying to claw, still trying to build something piece by piece. We understand that's not built in a day, but it's been many days, and I want to see that this team can potentially spoil the Patriots, bid to be number one in the AFC. I want to see the Jets potentially spoil the Bills, having a nice spot or home field advantage. So I want to still see us spoil, and I want to still see us fight. And hopefully tomorrow I can see a win. Let's get it. Jets. Jets. Let's